Happy Halloween and welcome to BeerNative. My name is Zombie Steve, and in this very special live Halloween edition of BeerNative Reviews, I'm going to be doing a bit of a history lesson. And eventually I may even have to turn some lights on so you can see. In this lesson, I'm going to be talking about a beer that is considering, let's say, itself. Let me add this to the scene. As you can see just here, Hobgoblin from Wychwood Brewery, the unofficial beer of Halloween. It seemed appropriate. Is it a craft beer? Debatable, and that is the horror story I'm about to tell you. When I first moved to the UK, Hobgoblin was roughly considered an edgy real ale, a crafty real ale. There was a lot, real ale, there were thousands. Thousands is probably an understatement. But Hobgoblin was kind of this sort of, I didn't know, it had a vibe to it that made it feel a little bit more challenging, let's say. And they didn't have a big range. There was just essentially you were buying Hobgoblin. Now, to go back and just explain Wychwood, the brewery, and our association, it sounds creepy and scary, doesn't it? Like, ooh, there be witches. The name Wychwood is the name of a forest. The Forest of Wychwood, which is a real place. Why is it called Wychwood Forest? Well, there's a really good reason for that. Way back, and let me help you with a banner, there was a tribe that lived in the forest that was called roughly Witch. Let me just pop that up there. You can see just whoop there. That's how it was spelt. And then, England being England, a bunch of nasty Mercians moved in. Well, nasty, I don't know. They like to take over things. Kind of took over and assimilated them. And they changed the spelling. And they, instead of spelling it like that, they spelled it like that. You know, phonetically still correct. And the forest became the wood of witch, which was Wychwoodu, which is what it was called before. It's now the Wood of Witch, or the Wychwood Forest. Let's fast forward. Well, let's fast forward past Wessex taking over Mercia and uniting England. Okay, blah, 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 to, let's say, the 1800s, when Eagle Malting started up, and they didn't brew beer. They created maltings for other breweries, and they had pubs, and then they were bought. But they scrapped the maltings, and the maltings building sat there for, let's say, a while until Wychwood took over. And that wasn't ancient. That was 30-ish something years ago. So not very long, right? So at the time, they would have been considered, let's say, 1970s based craft brewery. And if I scroll down to the very bottom, you can even see their address here. They're in Oxfordshire. Eagle Maltings, like their address is still named after the original site upon which they are now still existing. So it's really quite interesting. Now, the sad part, the scary part, is that they're no longer the sort of small brewery. They have blown up. Like, you can even tell by the website. I mean, well, what is this? There's like a canal boat. It's a bit cuckoo. Like they've gone big. I guess when you get early, you can be pretty big. They've got some new beers. They've extended their variety. But the scary one I thought I would review, mainly because, amazingly, I'd never had it, was King Goblin. And let's jump over to King Goblin. Now, in the true style of a good microbrew or a good craft beer, let's bring it up on the screen just here. And let me shrink my puny skull, scary skull down. They give you all the details. Treacle coffee, toffee coffee, earthy. The hops are some British content in there, some Fuggles, Sovereign, Styrian, and Cascade. Styrian's a pretty hot item at the moment, so staying current. Chocolate and crystal malt, the combination hopefully being, let's say, a toffee orange chocolate finish, right? Rich ruby coloring. Now, a lot of people watching this are probably thinking, this is kind of boring. I've had like these before. This isn't a microbrew, but it is interesting. The sad bit is where they were bought by Marston's, which is a really big real ale company out of the UK. And the saddest bit, the scary ending, is simply the fact that Marston's, as of like maybe now or this year, is selling to Carlsberg. So perhaps in celebration of losing one of the good ones finally to a macro, and I imagine it'll stay the same, but it's an interesting how this path of Wychwood through being bought and then being bought and then being bought and now being part of a giant epic beast is one of the paths that you see even the modern craft brews undertaking. And in a way, it's success for the owners and founders of that, but it's a bit of a loss for some of us who just appreciate the smaller efforts. Okay, history lesson over. Hope you enjoyed that. A lot of background, a lot more background there. Now, what I'm going to be doing also special today is I'm going to be tasting two beers side by side. That beer, the unofficial beer of Halloween in the UK, but also I'm going to be next to it tasting something that is truly craft still. And that is, and I'll pop it up, Munich by Night by Yankee Kraut. And it's got a scary theme, but it's a modern craft version of a Munich Dunkel. Now, by all rights, it should have a very similar flavor profile to our Wychwood. So I'm going to pour them out next to each other. Yankee Kraut is interesting. Now let's flip gears way over here. Couple of dudes who want to start a brewery, your typical craft story. They meet each other in 2005. They love beer. They get along. They start a brewery in 2016. How many craft beer breweries in the UK follow this exact same model, except they're in Germany, which is pretty cool. If we click on contact, which I probably should have had their location prepare. Really? I'm just going to get a form. This is why I prepare. Shipping. Let's try that. And then I'm just going to jump straight to here. Well, I can find them here. They're in Goldstadt, in Bayern, in Munich, in the Bayern. And they have a lot of beers. Look at this. This is their Untapped. This is where I first had to figure out where they were from. So I'm going to pour these out simultaneously. Look at some of the selections they've got on it now. Very modern. We're going to do them head to head. And I'm going to actually provide a little bit more light on here so you can see me in all my scariness. And we're going to have a go. King Goblin first. British looking glass for that. Beer festival, really old beer festival, long past. Now they call it a ruby color. England has a huge history of brown ale. Like people who don't live here see that there's a little bit of boringness going on there. Well, let's use my under light. You can catch the color there. Ruby, golden, pretty nice. Does that work? No. All right. But it is nice, and it's got a really beautiful, huge head on it. Smells very malty. I'm not getting a whole lot of hops. I'm not a fan of the mock craft. Is that a can I coin that? Mock craft, where they add all the ingredients and they say, oh, it's craft this, or it's IPA that, or it's like, and really it's just a traditional, inoffensive brown British beer. What I'm hoping now is that I'm going to crack Munich by Night from Yankee Kraut. I can only guess. I find it funny if you look up, you probably can't see if I bring Yankee Kraut back. The super small translation up there is too direct. I guess Google translated Yankee Kraut to Yankee Hen Herb, which is sort of a translation, but American person and German person is what it really should have said. Much finer head, almost identical color, completely ruby, completely brown, probably very similar malts, typical German Dunkel, And the only thing really different is the head. Oh, I'm going to put me back on big again. Here we are. We're back. They are incredibly similar in their color profile. And let me see if I can render that a little clearer for you, but it is as I expected. There you go. You can see the nice red ruby going on there. Looks like HAL 3000 when I shine the light through it, doesn't it? There we go. How freaky is that? That's Halloween. That's a good... Even the beer is wearing a Halloween costume. So I'm going to try Hobgoblin first. I'm just thinking right now, wow, I can't believe I didn't get a beer from Brains in Wales. That would have been so zombie. It's pretty good, actually. It's heavily malty. There is a bit of a hop hip, like a resiny. Not bad. Yeah, it's like a... I wouldn't say treacle. That's an overstatement. I would say coffee. It's not as chocolatey as I would have thought for having chocolate malt in there. It's like a light chocolate. There's even a bit of citrus. It's very unique for a British beer. I would say a lot of people who like brown ales at the pub, the old man beers of Britain, wouldn't like this. It's got a long finish. It does have pininess to it. How about that? All right. Now I know a lot less about this one. Let's see if Untapped has anything on it, because it's not on their website anymore. It's probably... I'm going to bias myself by finding out the score of it. It's a lager. Well, I'm comparing a lager to an ale. That's a big problem, but let's give it a go. It is very similar. It's got the yeastiness of a lager. Like you would in a blind taste test, you're not going to have a whole lot of difficulty telling this is the lager version. It doesn't have the long resininess, so they haven't hopped it heavily, but malt wise, it's like a twin brother. And it's pretty nice. It's got a really biscuitness to it that this doesn't have. It's like where this is biscuity, where the Munich by Night has biscuit, same exact malts. King Goblin has substituted in actually some pretty resinous hop varieties. There we go, a double hitter. Which one do I like better? I think I'm actually going to score the Hobgoblin as the winner at a head-to-head of that. It's all right. I would have it again if I were in a bar, if I were in a pub in England. Not that we're locking down again probably for another month, which means that's not going to happen for a while. And they had King Goblin, I'd be like, yeah, that's all right. I think I'll do that. I'll do a whole other what makes beer great, almost in negative form, and I'll get into the politics around pubs in England and how they're not really free houses anymore. In fact, free houses are hard to find. But yeah, so there we go. I'm going to score these guys up officially. King Goblin, I respect the Wychwood art that they've had the entire time, because it's very non-traditional. It is very craft. They have been doing it a long time, long before craft beers started making innovative, cool art. So they get points for that. You can get it normally in a can. I bought in the big bottle. They haven't tried to play craft games on me by serving it to me in a 330. They're sustaining the pint bottle, which is awesome. And I think it's quite good. So I'm going to give them a 7 on that on packaging. On art, on uniqueness, I'd say for England or Britain even, it's pretty unique. They hop the crap out of a brown beer, and that's brave here. So I kind of like it. It does border. I would even say they have an IPA. I would say if they really wanted to capture the craft market, they could have called that their IPA, because it is a 6.6%, and they call it an Imperial. It's not an Imperial, but I know what they mean because it's in that bottle and it's in the traditional brown beer real ale style. I know that they mean Imperial, and when the people market IPAs, they sometimes are like 5. Like it's like everything's turned down, you know, the descriptions that the craft beer market would embrace at 13%, 6%. So it's okay. I wasn't misled. As a tourist, I might be. So that's pretty good. Where was I? On uniqueness, I'm going to give it a 4 on uniqueness. On accuracy for being, well, it's not Imperial. Maybe I'll give it a 3 on accuracy. It's a ruby beer. They could have done better describing it, I think. And maybe even sold more in the process, possibly. So that's 7 again. 14. I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10 on flavor. It's a 21, which is pretty respectable. I'll give it a 3.5 on Untappd. Moving over to Munich by Night. Yes, I do like them. I like their art. It's creepy. It was all I could find for Halloween that I thought would look creepy. It was on brand. It was by a brewery that I liked. All their other artwork looks really quite cool. And yeah, probably 4 and 3. Same score, 7 on the art and packaging. They didn't have a unique cap, did they? I always like. I'll give points if they had a unique cap. I don't think they did. It was pretty plain. In terms of uniqueness, it's not unique at all. It is a Munich. It's their take on a standard, so it's going to get a 3. And is it accurate? It is accurate, actually. They did a good job. They didn't try to overcook it as a craft version. So maybe get the 4 back. So they're both at 14. I'll probably give it a 6. It's not overwhelming me. And calling it Munich by Night is, it's maybe like a marketing effort on selling something that's just pretty standard. So I'll give it a 20. It's a close race, right? 21 for the Hobgoblin, King Goblin, I should say. 20 for and they're both probably going to end up getting a 3.5 just due to rounding on Untappd. All right, there we go. I'm all made up. I got nowhere to go because we're on lockdown. So my wife doesn't know I've dressed like this. I guess I'll grab a beer and sneak into the house, click off all the lights, and try to freak her out. Happy Halloween, everybody. Thank you very much for watching yet another beer review. Please hit the the usual junk about hitting the like and subscribe down there at the bottom. I hope you got the point that I was trying to make about Wychwood Brewery. Is that nothing to do with witches, just English language. That's all. Nothing at all. Hobgoblin is actually pretty, just out of the blue. It looks like they picked it. So I hope you understand that brewery. All right. I've done one of my longer reviews again here. I don't think anybody's watching today. Sad. But that's okay. Watch it on the rewind, and I will catch you next time. My name's Steve Jaguar. This has been a BeerNative beer review. Keep drinking great beer, and boo. Happy Halloween.